So, so here we are in American Truck Simulator, and I'm going to show a few things in here that I've seen happen between YouTube, Twitch, and complaints and stuff on the forums. Some stuff I just wanted to point out. Uh, However, though, what we're going to be using is my personal mod, because it makes things easier. Just to show you that we are using it. I fixed all the engines in this game, so as you can see, we're on a hill with this, which is roughly over 187,000 pounds. So we already know by default the default engines are not going to cut this, because I'm using the clutch system, not pretend egg shifter, sequencer, or range splitter, actual clutch usage. And as you can see, the settings where my clutch is at are not over to the edge or anywhere else. They're actually practically in the center. SCS had fixed this, so as you can see, there's a travel, so you could actually work that clutch. But as you know, by default, it's not going to help you with this. But since I did fix the engines in here, we could pull away from this. And there we go. Now you're probably thinking, well, what is the point in using this to show you anything if I don't have this in the workshop with my personal mod and everything? That's like neither here nor there, because I'm using this because it would be easier to explain things and show things than fight with the default engines over everything, and therefore it makes it easier. Now, as for porting it out and putting it up as available to everybody, that I'm not really quick on that, because the game doesn't like it and it does not like it. How it's running it, I have no idea, but it surely doesn't like it, and therefore it's kind of pending until I figure a way how to resolve that, unless SCS comes up with a way to fix it, which would make my engine fixes 100% obsolete. But anyways, let's get on with this. So one of the things we're going to look at here real quick is how brake settings are set, because some people like to get that trucker's truck brake settings, because this is a very large vehicle and you have air compressing and whatnot, because you're not going to get hydraulics on something like this. You need to go here and you got to scroll down to where it says your brake intensity, and the closest that you're going to come to, this will include the brake lag that's involved and whatnot, is about right here. I usually use this check here as a marker for it. Now, if you're never had to brake like this before, it can be pretty hairy. And it can get pretty hairy because you're busy doing one of these, hauling up your way until you come up to your traffic stop. And then you turn around and you attempt to stop the truck, and you're like, whoa, wait a minute! Because you can't get it to stop. So you probably figure, well, what do I do? Well, it's simple. You downshift it. And work with that with the brakes. You got to work with that all together, because that's how it's actually done. And when you're loaded, that's worse, and it makes it harder than it does when it's empty, or it is easier. So, you have to, at first it becomes cumbersome, unless you're somebody who already understands how this is going to work. And if you're somebody who already understands how this is going to work, it becomes easier. Where the difficulties, because some people can get it and some people cannot. It just all depends on who you are. Regular drivers, they're obviously going to know it. Mechanics will automatically get the idea of it, because there are all types that play both European Truck Simulator 2 and this game. Now, the other thing, and I found this actually on Twitch, speak to a guy, he did not know that you could speed shift. Now, currently with the default engines, it's very, very problematic. But we're going to go through it anyways with this. What you'll do is you'll go into the controller set, and then you will come down to here to where you reach your 8-shifter settings. Once these are set, place this at advanced, and then you can be able to clutch or throttle between your shifts. Now, trucks don't have synchronized transmissions for real, but this is a game, so it don't matter if you clutch it or not. The difference between the synchronized and non-synchronized is a synchronized transmission uses a brass gearing that allows the gear to slow down so that you can shift. That's why in a car you could drive at 80 miles an hour, have it in high gear, pushing the clutch, and put it in the first, even though letting out that clutch would be catastrophe. But you can do that. But in a truck, you can't. Once you pull that out of gear, if you're not in the right speed for it, you are never getting it back in. And that's how non-synchronized transmissions are. So, you're to synchronize it or to work it. Basically what you're doing is you're working the RPMs versus the speed that you're traveling at, what they call transmission speed, but basically just to round it out, the mile per hour, or if you're in European Truck Simulator 2, it would be the kilometers per hour. So it's really all about the timing that you need set. So we're going to be, since this is a 13 speed, we're like in the first gear set, we have a second gear set, and then we have to drop the gear set as we go in here to the next one, because you're going up in steps when you're doing the speed shifting. Which also works the way when you go downshift. Now you'll notice that most of the time during the shift is anywhere between 15 to 20 grand. It's about in this range area. So it's like when you're new, you gotta kind of like work with it and practice with it if you want to go this route. But you know, sometimes because out of habit I tend to do that going up gears, but I will clutch going down them because it takes too long. Especially when you're trying to brake with the braking system that I'm using, because been there, done that, don't really care. But you know, if you want to try it out to see what it's like, that would be basically what you're doing. Now the other thing I want to cover this, because I've actually seen this quite a few times and some people has actually made complaints, and basically what it is they'll sit here and they'll go, what is that noise? That's the engine brake. In the US, there are city ordinances in which you cannot use that. And this is not where you use it. And for some reason, when you install the game, the engine brake is live. Because it's apparently automatic, I guess. You have to go into gameplay, scroll down to where the truck settings are, and take a good look. Because some people think they're not having any problems with their truck because they got the electricity start. All this stuff ends up, all the stuff that you don't really need is engaged, and the automatic parking brake engagement is not. Not sure what that's all about. Maybe because there'll be somebody crying about that. Because after all, you got that guy or person who stands out in the rain and is eluded that they're getting wet and they don't know why. Or sitting on the toilet and they've finished their business and they got their head in their hands, crying out to the Almighty about how messy they are, and then they don't know what to do while there's a butt washer or toilet paper there that can help them. But you go into the gameplay, you come down here and observe these things and decide what you want on and what you don't. I have this on because it's habit for me to get in the truck, start it up, and before going anywhere is release the parking brake, because truck transmissions, automatic or stick, don't have a parking paw and they don't hold there by themselves. So that's what I'm used to. I don't need this. And the automatic engine brake, in my book, it's pointless. I mean, I got a car controller set, I got keyboards, and I'd rather use it where I need it when I'm role playing and not use it where I don't need it. See what I'm saying? So you have to look, and this is where you disable that stuff or enable what they did not put in. Like the air brake simulator, not exactly sure what this does, because whether this is on or off, it's having absolutely nothing to do with how I got my brake intensity or anything. I mean, in the beginning, in European Truck Simulator 2, you had to watch how many times you hit the brakes or you lost air pressure, or you would sleep overnight and air pressure would actually be low, and the longer you slept, the tank could be practically empty, which would be realistic. But I guess there are just too many players that are that person that got to be explained they need to get out of the rain, that they changed that because the players don't have enough brains to come in here and shut it off and not worry about it. But whatever. Moving on. So when you're here, this is not where you use it at all. So then, what is the engine brake used for? So when you're using the engine brake, this is how you would use it. Because your idea is to control the speed. You apply more of the engine brake as you need it to maintain that speed control, as well as assistance from the use of the retarder from the trans as you need it. Because as you can see, the more I apply, the more she'll slow down, besides how much of the engine brake I'm using. And this is where you're using it, because it keeps you realistically from burning your brakes up when you are carrying heavy loads or any loads with a truck going down the mountainside. Versus, because trucks, that truck, it flies by, and then next thing you know, you have brake fading, and that is the result of the truck's brakes heating up. And you already know which truck that is, because that's the guy flying past you where his brakes are smelling because they're smoking up. So, but the game does not, like I said, is not defining that. So since it's not defining that, and it's not like the game has a brake fade ability, so if you want to role play that act out, this would be how you would do it. Now, for those of you in which the engine brake ruins your life for whatever reason, because you have issues with that, okay, what you do is remember, just put down your baba, take off your diaper and your binky out of your backside, and put on your adult clothes and act like you got brains, because I've seen you guys, even on the forums, go to options, go to gameplay, scroll down this and look for the truck settings and make sure the automatic engine brake is not checked, and then go into these controls and go to where it says engine brake, and then what you do is, because as you see I got NA, so if I put E in, and you can remove it by hitting undersign, it's like magic, and then you could make sure the rest of them are disabled. For me, these are on my steering wheel, so I have, because I ain't got time to be hitting keyboards when I need it. But that's what you do, and act like a sensible adult about it. It's not killing anybody. But, you know, for those of you who role-play it, you can role-play it any way you want. That's the basis on what it does. Because even on my personal mod, I was redoing the engines for European Truck Simulator 2, and I reinstalled all the engine brakes and exhaust manifold brakes wherever the manufacturer says this is what they use, and I'll probably might just keep that where that's at for the moment until I decide what I'm going to do with that. But you know, I wanted the better control over the truck than what is there by default, because it's so chaotic at times. So at least now I got my speed shifting control back on that game, and as well as a better power usages and stuff. But anyways, we're not talking about that, we're talking about this. So moving on,